Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is indeed Lesley Gilmartin, and you look quite a friendly crowd, we think, quite friendly. So, yes, I am here to tell you my story. Like all good stories, fairy and otherwise, it has a beginning, a middle, and what I think is a pretty satisfactory conclusion. Here's the beginning. I was operations director for my own management consultancy. We delivered projects to organisations throughout Scotland, large, small, private and public. Fairly successful. But then after about 8 years, I woke up one morning and thought, I need a change. I need something different. I need a new challenge. So what to do about it? Started to think and started to research what would my career now start to look like? And as part of that research, I spoke with recruitment companies. And here's where my experience fits with what you've been talking about today. Let me tell you what it's like to be a candidate. As a senior candidate, what became clear early on was that it wasn't the number of roles that recruiters spoke to me about. It wasn't the quality or the chances and opportunities they spoke to me about. What was important was how they made me feel. And very often, how that felt wasn't good. Sometimes I felt all I was a potential fee sitting across the table from a recruiter. Very few seemed to be interested in me as a person. They didn't seem to be interested in my journey so far, and they didn't seem to be interested in my journey and my next steps. The way they tried to relate to me was quite interesting as well. Some of them tried so hard to be my friend. I have friends. I do. Obviously, that came across as insincere and incongruent. Some of them were very challenging and quite questioning about what I had delivered and what I had achieved. And it became clear that, unfortunately, in some cases, these individuals just didn't know their market very well. And I was difficult to place. I wasn't a typical candidate. And because I didn't fit into any of the boxes that they had, they really didn't know what to do with me. And as you can imagine, radio silence followed. I was never heard from again. Until one day I had a different experience. And that experience was with a gentleman called Scott Miller. From the very first meeting I had with Scott, I knew this was something special. The meeting was relational, it was open, it was respectful, and it was very honest. Scott and I kept in touch. A coffee here, maybe something stronger. A phone call there. He even invited me to a few networking events that he was running, and I actually spoke at a few networking breakfasts that he arranged. Months after that initial meeting with Scott, he called. I have an opportunity. said he. A very, very interesting opportunity. We had a chat, I met the client, I went for an interview, and I was successful. I then became head of employee engagement for one of the nuclear divisions within EDF Energy. Vive la France. It was a fantastic role. I loved it. I was a very, very happy candidate of Badenoch and Clark. Scott had also done that very smart thing that very good perm recruiters do. He had changed his candidate into a client. And when I was adding to my new team at EDF, the question wasn't where to go. The question was, why on earth would I go anywhere else? The team understood me, they understood the organisation, they knew what I was about. They also recognised what I needed. And more importantly to me, I had absolute faith and trust that they would respect and protect the brand that I was representing. Sadly, for geographical reasons, a new move was needed. I had been living away from home and working away from home, and I felt it was time to go home and live in my own house. Oh, and with my husband. Just a slight aside that I promised I would put in. The only reason I got to be here today. As you can imagine, who else am I going to speak with but my friends and colleagues at Badenoch and Clark? And this time, after a few months, the opportunity that was presented to me was with an organisation closely linked with the Scottish Government. Back to Glasgow I went. Most of you will know that when you work with a government organisation, you have no choice but to use at least 3 suppliers. So when I was looking to build my team, that's what I had to do. And this too is an interesting experience. And this is when I started to truly understand the difference between a recruitment agent and a recruitment consultant. I found myself reviewing CVs that were, to be frank, completely unsuitable for the roles that I had. I found myself trying desperately hard to be listened to and to be understood by some of the recruitment consultants. And sadly, I found myself interviewing candidates who had either been inadequately or poorly prepared, indeed, if they had been briefed at all. Looking back at that time, one of the things that I've started to notice is the questions that I was asked as a client. Rather than ask, okay, Lesley, what skills do you want this person to have? What experience do you want this person to have? Badenoch and Clark asked me, Lesley, what difference do you want this person to make to your team and to your organisation? What outcomes do you want them to deliver? Very much questioning that focuses on how the recruiter is adding value and ensuring my success. That's the middle part of my story. And I'm sure some of you may be able to guess the end. I'll tell you. The Badenoch and Clark team and I had always joked and laughed. Wouldn't it be great, Lesley, if you could come and join us? What fun we would have. And we do. We do every day. And I've now been a senior manager with Badenoch and Clark based in Glasgow for about 2.5 years. And I'm delighted that I have such a great team. This photograph isn't to show you the team. This photograph is to show you that it doesn't always rain in Glasgow. That was a very short window of opportunity. We had to dash out, take the photograph, dash back in again. And Scott and I are still together, the man himself. As a team, we have our moments. Of course we do. Every team does. But there is never a day goes by when I don't remember my experience as a candidate, how I felt, and my experience as a client and how I felt. And because of that, as a team, we set ourselves very high standards and we aim to meet them. Going back to something earlier, we aim to meet and to reach our own moon every day. My advice is never forget to listen to your candidates and never forget to listen to your clients. Thank you very much indeed.